Hello, and welcome to yet another edition of Wisdom Readings. Yeah, the Monday edition with yours truly, Kholo Suela. Yes. Yeah, what can I say? Started on a very new book, and this one is called the Isopanisad. Last week, if you had a chance to view, we did the introduction, which was done by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, and the introduction was titled or was dubbed "The Teachings of the Vedas," and this was delivered by His Grace at on October the 6th, 1969. I was not born yet, at Conway Hall in London, England. And this was a very, very esteemed event, I'm meant to understand, that was attended by very, very uh, intellectual people that were in that hall. And he gave like a background of the Vedas and where the Vedas come from, what the Vedas mean, and how you can actually relate to Vedas in your day-to-day lives and how it affects your day-to-day lives. It was quite a a an account by His Divine Grace. And if you have a chance, please go through the wisdom reading videos at WUSA 108 on Facebook and on YouTube. And you will get yourself that edition where I am going through the introduction and all the points that are in the introduction. Nomusa followed on Tuesday and gave us the invocation. Wow, man. With the problems that we are having in the country, power being one of them, we'd like to apologize for cut in transmission during her broadcast of the wisdom readings, which was rudely interrupted by power. She started the whole class, with a very, very bold statement, about power and about, how people who are in charge are just not doing the right thing, and we're having so many problems. And yeah, there's so much that one can say about it. And Kholo also followed with Mantra 1 and gave us an account of Mantra 1, which is very, very, yeah, quite something. And what we are going to be doing today is we're going to be going into Mantra 2, which is one of the, also taken from the Isopanisad. We're going to read the Isopanisad from cover to cover, and hoping that you will be joining us in on a daily basis, not forgetting that on Thursday we're having our book club, which is also on WUSA 108. So make it a point that you are with us. So the Sri Isopanisad is a book that helps you perceive the God, that the personality of Godhead, in a more personal way. And it's one book that actually opens your eyes to quite a whole lot about God himself. So I'm going to start with the invocation. The invocation reads as follows: Om Purnam Adaham Purnam Idam Purnat Purnam Ada Udashyate Purnasya Purnam Adayam Purnam Eva Vasishyate. Om Purnam Adaha Purnam Idam Purnat Purnam Ada Udashyate Purnasya Purnam Adaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate Om Purnam Adaha Purnam Idam Purnat Purnam Udashyate Purnasya Purnam Adayam Purnam Eva Vasishyate. So if you were watching last week, Nomusa covers the meaning behind the invocation. That's something that I'm not going to dwell too much on. I'm just going to carry on with the business at hand. And today, Isopanisad Mantra 2 is where we are going to be reading. And the mantra reads as follows: Gurvan Evaha Karmani Gigi Vishek Shatam Asama Samaha Evam Twai Nanyateto Sti Na Karma Lipyate Nare. And the synonyms read as follows: Gurvan, doing continuously, ever, thus, iha, during this span of life, karmani, work, gigi, vishet, one should desire to live, shatam, 100, samaha, years, evam, so living, twayi, unto you, na, no, anyata, alternative, itaha, from this path, asti, there is, na, not, karma, work, lipyate, can be bound, nare, unto a man. And the translation of what we have just read in Sanskrit is as follows: one may aspire to live for hundreds of years if he continuously goes on working in that way, for that sort of work will not bind him to the law of karma. There is no alternative to this way for man. Okay. And we're going to read the purport, which is written by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. No one wants to die. Everyone wants to live as long as he can drag on. This tendency is visible not only individually, but also collectively in the community, society, and nation. There is a hard struggle for life by all kinds of living entities. And the Vedas say that this is quite natural. The living being is eternal by nature. But due to his bondage in material existence, he has to change his body over and over. This process is called transmigration of the soul, or karma bandhana, bondage by one's work. The living entity has to work for his livelihood because that is the law of material nature. And if he does not act according to his prescribed duties, he transgresses the law of nature and binds himself more and more to the cycle of birth and death in the many species of life. Wow. Many species of life, 8.4 million species of life. So this transmigration happens between 8.4 million. Wow, this is something. It's amazing. Other life forms are also subject to the cycle of birth and death. But when the living entity attains a human life, he gets a chance to get free from the chains of karma. Karma, akarma, and vikarma are very clearly described in the Bhagavad Gita. Actions that are performed in terms of one's prescribed duties, as mentioned in the revealed scriptures, are called karma. Actions that free one from the cycle of birth and death are called akarma. And actions that are performed through the misuse of one's freedom and one direct one to the lower life forms are called V-karma. A-karma, V-karma, and karma. Wow. Action is just karma, and A-karma is positive actions, V-karma, negative actions, actions that will bind you even further. Wow, that's a very good explanation and something that I actually didn't know that how broad karma is actually. Um, since now you can actually segment it into R karma and V karma, and this is quite great knowledge, and it's something that I feel we should start using and start acting more in the way of our karma rather than V karma, to extend or to free ourselves from the cycle of birth and death, with the actions that we do. And I would assume that our karma would be, being austere in whatever that you do. And V karma would be, the opposite. If you're not being austere, and that would be considered to be V karma because that will bind you even further. Yeah, it's a great explanation by His divine grace. Of these three types of actions, that which frees one from the bondage to karma is preferred to by intelligent men. Ordinary men wish to perform good work in order to be recognized and achieve some higher status of life in this world or in heaven. But more advanced men want to be free altogether from the action and reaction of work. Intelligent men will know that both good and bad work equally bind one to the material miseries. I must repeat that. Intelligent men will know that both good and bad work equally bind one to the material misery. Wow, it's intense. Consequently, they seek that work which will free them from the reaction of both good and bad work. Such liberating work is described here in the pages of the Sri Isopanisad. The instruction of Sri Isopanisad are more elaborately explained in the Bhagavad Gita, sometimes called the Jitopanisad, the cream of all Upanishads. In the Bhagavad Gita, the personality of Godhead says that one cannot attain the state of Naishkarmya or Akarma without executing the prescribed duties mentioned in the Vedic literature. Akarma is when you are freeing yourself from this bondage. This literature can regulate the working energy of a human being in such a way that he can gradually realize the authority of the Supreme Being. Wow. When he realizes the authority of the personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, or Krishna, it is to be understood that he has attained the stage of positive knowledge In this purified stage, the modes of nature, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance, cannot act, and he is able to work on the basis of Naishkarmya, our karma. Such work does not bind one to the cycle of birth and death. Wow. So, yeah, one must really act according to getting out of this bondage that we are currently in. And here, Srila Prabhupada is explaining, how important it is that, whatever work or whatever action that we take must be mostly in the mood of goodness, and we must fulfill what is recommended in the Vedas. Um, Familiarize ourselves with the Vedas, and the Vedas will guide us, in acting properly to achieve liberation. You know, I think I must read on so that I can understand, even expand my understanding more about, the different types of karmas that we've just touched on through His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Factually, no one has to do anything more than render devotional service to the Lord. However, in the lower stages of life, one cannot immediately adopt the activities of devotional service, nor can one completely stop fruitive action, fruitive work. A conditioned soul is accustomed to working for sense gratification, for his own selfish interests, immediate or extended. An ordinary man works for his own sense enjoyment. And when this principle of sense enjoyment is extended to include his society, nation, or humanity in general, it assumes various attractive names such as altruism, socialism, communism, nationalism, humanitarianism. Wow. These isms are certainly very attractive forms of karma bandhana, karmic bondage. But the Vedic instruction of Sri Isopanisad is that if one actually wants to live for any of the above isms, he should make them God-centered. All right. Yeah, that's very, very important. I think I should. These isms are certainly very attractive forms of karma bandhana, karmic bondage. But the Vedic instruction of Sri Isopanisad is that if one actually wants to live for any of the above isms, he should make them God-centered. So if you are a humanitarian, you must be a humanitarian dovetailed to God. Wow. A socialist dovetailed to God. A communist dovetailed to God. Wow. That's very, very, very profound, I think. Yeah, and it really gives you like an idea and a very good advice, in how to actually approach each and every ism that we are attracted to. As people, we feel that we have, responsibilities. We want to change the world. We want to, and all of these isms are all the isms that we actually, partake in, to try and fulfill our dreams and fulfill our what we think is our purpose. So here Srila Prabhupada is actually expanding on how to actually make it work for you to end up in the best place, which is back to Godhead. No, there is no harm in becoming a family man or an altruist or a socialist, a communist, a nationalist, or a humanitarian, provided that one executes his activities in relation with Ishavashya, the God-centered conception, the God-centered conception. Wow, which is what I just said. Wow, thank you, Srila Prabhupada. Quite on point. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 40, Lord Krishna states that God-centered activities are so valuable that just a few of them can save a person from the greatest danger. The greatest danger of life is the danger of gliding down again into the evolutionary cycle of birth and death among the 8.4 million species. Wow. It's danger. Birth, death, disease, and all of that. Suffering, you know. Yeah. This is what we should try and save ourselves from. Um, and we save ourselves by doing God-centered activities. That's very, very profound. And I think it's best advice, I can give to somebody. Oh, the best advice I've got today. If someone or other a man misses the spiritual opportunity afforded by his human form of life and falls down again in the evolutionary cycle, he must be considered most unfortunate. Wow. Due to his defective senses, a foolish man cannot see that this is happening. Consequently, Sri Isopanisad advises us to exert our energy in the spirit of Ishavashya, and that is God-centered activities. Yeah. Being so engaged, we may wish to live for many, many years. Otherwise, a long life in itself has no value. A tree lives for hundreds and hundreds of years, but there is no point in living a long time like trees, or breathing like bellows, or begetting children like hogs and dogs, or eating like camels. A humble, God-centered life is more valuable than a colossal hoax of a life dedicated to godless altruism and socialism. Wow. Whew. That's like a punchline. Can meditate on that. I'm definitely sure you can meditate on that. Wow. God centered action is quite crucial to advancement. And I think this is the basis if you want to live forever. Um, your actions have to be, God centered. And the Vedas are there, to guide God centered, God central living, and it's one of the things that that's I think it's the best advice, like I've said, I've had today. And because of that, I think I have to start reading more and more Vedas, to actually find out you know how to attain that perfection, and that will actually lead you to the next life, a better life. I don't think anybody wants to fall at this point in time, after becoming a human. uh, you've come so far, and then only to get back. And that's what his divine grace is saying, that a lot of people don't actually realize that they're doing this because of the lack of God in whatever action that they are doing. So bringing God and centering Him in each and everything that you do, helps you to attain, which is the better life, and it puts you well in your way to back to Godhead, which is what this life is mainly for. And you know, let's not spend our lives, going back to becoming, animals, because that's what might happen if we perform with a lack of God in whatever that we do. When altruistic activities are executed in the spirit of Sri Isopanisad, they become a form of karma yoga. Such activities are recommended in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, verse 5 to 9. For they guarantee their executor protection from the danger of sliding down into the evolutionary process of birth and death. Yeah. Even though such God-centered activities may be half finished, they are still good for the executor because they will guarantee him a human form in his next birth. In this way, one can have another chance to improve his position on the path of liberation. Another good advice, you know. If you want to stay human, there you go. Karma yoga, you know, activities that will keep you coming back as a human being, you know. Try to read the Vedas and actually find out, what those activities are, what those activities entail. I'm sure we're gonna have, I think it's high time that we have that Ask a Monk program where we're gonna talk about and expand on these purports that Prabhupada is actually talking about. Srila Prabhupada, His Divine Grace. It's quite, yeah, it's striking. It's yeah, the best advice, taking you through passages that nobody in this world can take you through. These are things that I don't think a lot of people know about, and here they are. In the Sri Isopanisad, get yourself the book. Um, it's very, very important that you have a read and actually find out how all of this actually comes together. Um, how one can execute a God-centered activity is elaborated, explained in the Bhakti Rasamarta Sindhu by Srila Rupa Goswami, one of the Goswamis. We have rendered this book into English as the Nectar of Devotion. Wow, there we go. We recommend this valuable book to all who are interested in performing their activities in the spirit of Sri Isopanisad. Wow. Is that the end of the purport? Is that it? I'm not sure whether the next page is it let me just check if my book is correlating. Mantra 2. So I've got the book, Performing Activities of Sri Shapanishad. Yes, yes, yes. And that's the end of the purport. And that brings us to the end of the program. It's quite an interesting and intriguing program, I must just say. Just took me into, yeah, quite a lot. Juliet Ruth Wasserman is thanking us. Thank you, Juliet. I think we must get Prabhu Sabyasachi Prabhu to come and join us on Saturday, where we can ask him quite a lot of questions. I would really love to be interested in how this whole cycle and you know, the the fruitive actions and the actions, that are centered to God, how all of this works, what a person can do to achieve a human state of life again, you know, rather than not doing what if you do something different, apparently you become an animal, and when you become an animal, it's quite difficult to become a human again. And that's what I've picked up, and yeah, his divine grace is just explaining it and just putting it out there. It's very, very, whew, yeah. I'm actually going to read more after this. Thank you for joining us, and yeah, make sure to join Nomusa when she goes on to the third mantra tomorrow, explaining more about, yeah, life and the cycles of life. What comes out of life when you do this? What comes out of life when you do that? And this is the basis of the Sri Isopanisad. So scientific, I don't think there's a scientist that can actually explain, what I've just read. There's no science book that, talks about this. This is quite, yeah, it's higher knowledge, knowledge that I don't think exists in any university, and would like to thank Srila Prabhupada, His Divine Grace, for bringing this nectar to us. And today we are sharing it. And yeah, please join us every day, for wisdom readings and get to hear about the wisdom that is out there and that is, wow, it's amazing. It's awakening, you know. Yeah, without any waste of time. I think I've run all over my time. We should make this an hour. Like I'm saying this every Monday. It becomes better when it's an hour. Thank you and goodbye. Till next week, Monday. Please join Nomusa tomorrow, between 7 and 7:30. Itumeleng is on Wednesday. On Thursday, we are with the book club. Yes, we are reading Krishna's book, and we are reading about Krishna. You wanna actually come through, because I think this is after he actually protected the inhabitants of Vrindavan with Govardhan Hill, by picking up Govardhan Hill, apparently with his pinky. He had it all up there, and everybody was safe from Indra. And now we're going to hear what Indra has to say about, the whole, the whole, the whole massacre that happened. So yeah, join us on Thursday for the book club. Thank you for joining us today. Bye.